It is 5 p.m. This is our regular city council meeting, May 26, 2020. Councilman Rapson is on our telephone tonight. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha. All right. We do not have anybody to give an invocation this evening. The moment of silence for commemoration of Memorial Day yesterday and the gentlemen and ladies that we lost in the wars. Thank you. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll start this evening with public comment. If you have public comment to make, please step up to the front, clearly state your name, and you're limited to 3 minutes. Do we have any e-comment?
Yes, we do. We have an e-comment from Adam Leverance, and it states, at the last regular council meeting, various parties spent over an hour and a half discussing issues related to the contract city attorney having filed as a candidate for mayor. I believe that 4 of those commenting were themselves attorneys. I heard a lot of things that I hope council and city management have taken to heart. At that May 12, 2020 meeting, we heard from one city hired lawyer about the rule of law and that it makes every person equally subject to the law. We heard from others about the supremacy of Nevada revised statute over Mesquite Municipal Code. We heard from council members that the city cannot go against state law. We heard about the city potentially taking action that would set bad precedent and allow corruption to fester, as if that hasn't already happened over and over again. A council member also mentioned the oath city personnel take to uphold the law and constitution. I've been telling you things like this for years, having now heard similar contentions from various lawyers and some of you even making these contentions yourself. I hope each of you now realizes that state and federal statutes have supremacy over local ordinances and codes, and constitutional provisions, both state and federal, also have supremacy over local ordinances and codes. I hope that you now also realize that City of Mesquite personnel aren't above the law simply because they work here. Elected officials and city management have been made aware of documented instances of unethical and unlawful conduct by specific public employees. You have either provided or been referred to related evidence and facts. Some of you have been provided multiple copies of these things, yet have consistently seemed to disregard, lie about, obfuscate, trivialize, or cover up city misconduct. Doing so probably improves the lives of those few public employees here who engage in misconduct, but it does little to improve Mesquite or its reputation. Please, at long last, realize that too. Going forward, I hope that the discussions of May 12th will remain fresh in your minds and that you realize that Mesquite is not lawfully entitled to remain in its own corrupt little fiefdom. You don't have the luxury of being arbitrary and capricious in regards to the rule of law, state and federal law, or constitutional provisions. With me having been unable to convince you of that to date, hopefully 4 attorneys now have. Thank you. End of comment. And there's no further comment.
No further okay, thank you. Okay, any other public comment before we move on? Okay, seeing and hearing none, we'll look at our consent agenda, items number 2.1 and 2.2. Any comment from council on the consent? Any comment from the general public on the consent? Seeing and hearing none, I request the motion on the consent agenda.
I'll move to approve.
Second. And we have a second. Call for the vote, please.
Rapson, aye.
That motion passes. Thank you. Item 3.1 is a resolution. Consideration of resolution number 1014, zone change master plan amendment case number ZCM-20-001. for approval to amend the Coyote Willows PUD master plan by removing 7.13 acres at 880 West Hafen Lane from the plan unit development master plan map, changing the land use designation of property near Pulsifer Wash from golf course maintenance facility and RV parking to Pulsifer Wash drainage easement, and by changing the zoning of the following two parcels: 880 West Hafen Lane from plan unit development, medium density multifamily MF3 and parks and recreation and open space zones to the general commercial CR2 zone. And 940 West Hafen Lane from plan unit development, medium density multifamily MF3 and parks recreation open space zones to plan unit development PUD parks recreation open space, which is a PROS zone. And that is Mr. Seacrest.
Your Honor, members of the City Council, this zone change master plan request is brought forward to us tonight by the applicants Terry and Vicky Living Trust and the Lindy and Monica Family Living Trust. You want to put the first exhibit up? There's several things going on in this application, and after I kind of orient you to the site, I'll kind of walk you through and explain them. First thing I want to show is a vicinity map, if we can get it up.
Here we go.
Okay, so the parcels outlined in red there, the 880 West, 940 West Hafen Lane. And then you can see Riverside Road, Hagen's Alley, looping down from Hafen Lane over towards Riverside. The Coyote Willows PUD master plan basically laid out there. The family trust property is the 880 West property. And I'll explain a little bit more about that as we go along. Basically, back in 2018, LZH Development Company did a parcel map and divided the 12.17 acre piece in two, and they sold the western 5.04 acres off to CW Investment, the owner of the golf course. That's where the golf maintenance building is, that's where the parking is for the golf course, and near the temporary clubhouse. The other parcel, the 880 West parcel, 7.15 acre piece, they sold off to the Terry and Vicky and Lindy and Monica Living Trust for future development. LZH Development had no interest in doing multifamily housing, and so they decided to sell that off. Let's go to the next slide, Tyson. The one before, yeah, that one. In 2004, the Coyote Willows PUD master plan was approved. And this is a map that shows basically the land use activities laid out with the housing, open space, golf course, etc. Up over on the left-hand side, which would be the west side of the property, next to the Casablanca driving range, is Pulsifer Wash. And where the wash comes through, that was designated on this master plan for the golf course maintenance building and some RV parking. We know that's not what happened, and the golf maintenance building is over on 940 West. In any case, that's the way they initially contemplated developing this. The parcel out in front, the kind of a orange-brown color piece up there, that's the 12.17 acres that they split and sold off. But in the original master plan, this was designated as, on their map, it's designated as what they call high-density residential multifamily development. The actual density proposed was 152 units on 12.17 acres. It's about 12.4 units per acre. That conform to the city's medium density residential multifamily zone. So on our zoning map, we showed it as medium density, even though in their master plan they call it high density. And there was a parkette or park in the middle of it, open space, presumably for the housing. Let's go to the next slide. And so this is the master plan that's being proposed tonight, and it involves a couple of zone changes as well. Basically, over on the left, again, the Pulsifer Wash property, it's all Pulsifer Wash easement due to the flooding problems they've had over the years over there and the environmental issues. The golf maintenance, RV parking is not going to be located there. The parcel at 940 West, kind of cross-hatched violet color, I guess, on that map. That's where the golf maintenance building is, the parking. And this is proposed to be downzoned, taken out of the multifamily designation and just made parks, recreation, and open space. So it'll remain the golf maintenance facility property and parking for the golf course under the ownership of CW Investment. The red parcel, 7.15 acre parcel owned by the Family Trust, is proposed to be taken out of the Coyote Willows PUD. So what that involves is changing the boundary of the PUD zone to exclude that parcel, number one. And number two, to change the zoning from the medium density multifamily residential to general commercial. Initially, when LZH sold the property, the Family Trust, I talked to some of the owners, the Family Trust owners. At the time, they were thinking they might want to do some kind of storage facility there. I guess they have a number of trailers, utility trailers, ATVs, whatever they wanted to store, and they were thinking maybe, it should be zone light industrial. We tried to suggest a different route. We didn't think the light industrial would be compatible, and it allowed too many things that probably wouldn't be good neighbors. I like the idea of, leaving it as multifamily so we could have additional housing. In any case, they hit on the idea of zoning it general commercial because that zone allows multifamily housing at the same density as the medium density zone, 20 units per acre. So they could do multifamily housing if they wanted, self-storage, storage units or RV storage as a conditional use. They could still do that possibly with some of their property. So they decided to make that request. And that's what you have before you tonight. So it's those two zone changes, the downzoning of the golf maintenance building to parks, recreation, open space, and the change, I guess you could call it an upzoning from multifamily to general commercial on the 880 West Hafen Lane property. And then approval of the new configuration of their overall master plan. We've advertised it as a public hearing and recommend you take public comment and then approve the request.
Okay.
You have any questions for me?
Councilman Worstham.
I guess I've had a lot of people come and talk to me about this, and I just want to make sure that I understand it well and that those that are out in the audience understand it fairly well. So what we're talking about here is we're talking about taking these pieces of property out of the PUD, the Coyote Willows PUD, correct?
In one piece out.
Okay, one piece out of the PUD. And from what I understand, the Community Association Board, which is the people that were voted on to represent them, are fine with this. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay, did you talk to them or did
They
somebody
submitted a letter.
They submitted a letter saying they were fine with that. Okay, and the reason that they'd want to change this to CR2 is so that they could possibly put in some commercial, whether it's self-storage, RV storage, could maybe a Walmart there if somebody wanted to put one on Hafen Lane, which I don't anticipate anybody would want to put anything like that there.
But yeah, retail uses would be allowed.
Would be allowed,
Yeah.
but I don't know that that would be something they'd want to do there. But as far as, and this is the important point that I wanted to make sure that this was very clear, because I've been asked this a number of times, is that right now in the PUD, it is multifamily 3, correct?
That's correct.
And changing this zoning to CR2 does not change the density at all. Is that correct?
Well, yes and no.
Okay.
Let me explain.
Please,
It's,
that's what's very important here.
yeah. It allows multifamily housing at what is now a medium density. So that's the same. If it's MF3 or CR2, the same density is allowed, but it's 20 units per acre now. It used to be between 12 and 18 and required a conditional use permit. That was changed several years ago. So they could have up to 20 units per acre multifamily housing on it now.
So even in the PUD, it still could be
That's
20
correct.
units per acre.
Yes.
So that's not changed. Well, changed to go to the higher density, but whether it's MF3 or CR2, it lists at the same density right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the original master plan, they had 152 units. If you actually, did 15 acres of 20 units per acre, it would be higher than that. But
Okay.
I have a comment.
Go ahead, please.
I think this is pretty simple. And I follow Brian's train of thought here. Basically, nothing's much changed, except it gives them the option to do something that the original zoning and PUD did not allow. And I don't think that's incompatible with what's going on that whole Hafen Lane. I mean, we've got storage units, half a mile down. I mean, we've got stuff. And frankly, we're in a situation where economically we're in struggling times. I think that we should encourage businesses to do whatever they can do to develop property in this town. And I don't think there's anything harmful in this. The HOA's approved it. Those are the people, their primary interests. That's my theory anyway.
One other thing that I wanted to bring up is in talking to some of these people, I've had several of them tell me that they received no notice on this. I'm not sure why, or where you live, or if it was in conjunction with that, but that concerns me that many of these people felt like they weren't noticed on this. That's something that we need to address with them.
well, we did, of course, mail notices to property owners of record within 750 feet. We published it in the newspaper, and we posted a sign on the property. So we attempted to give notice. I don't know why, if they didn't receive one, maybe they're further than 750 feet. But in any case, the notices were sent out.
And
Any other? Go ahead.
the HOA represents the homeowners that are all probably within 750 feet. And they approved it. And it's the responsibility of the HOA to give notice to the residents. Now, if there's a few people across the street or down the street or something, I mean, we've got the Archon building there. We've got the Veterans Center there. I don't even understand why this is being discussed. I mean, honestly, it should have been motioned and approved, in my opinion.
Can I just say one other thing on notice? Ordinarily, in normal circumstances, the applicant would have been required to have a neighborhood meeting. And when they started this back in March, they tried to schedule a neighborhood meeting and then decided that, you know, it wasn't prudent to have that many people meet together anymore. And everything got continued and put off. This time around, they still didn't feel like a meeting was appropriate, so they sent out notices to property owners trying to at least explain what was going on and giving them a phone number to call at Bullock Brothers to talk to Victor Campbell and have him explain what was happening and answer their questions. And I know that numerous people took advantage of that and called them. I spoke with Victor this afternoon, so he said he got mixed results. Some people were just trying to find out what was happening. Some people in favor, some people opposed. But in any case, the attempt was made there also to try and let people know what was happening.
Yeah. Any other comments from council? Okay. Now, Richard, I don't have this on here as a public hearing, just as public comment, but it's basically the same thing. So, yeah. I can open it up for public comment as well as public hearing. So, yes, please step up if you have comments to make and state your name clearly.
Hi, my name's Kendall Workman, and I live immediately across the street from the, I guess it would be the 880 Hafen Lane parcel. So it's about, I would say, whatever the width of Hafen Lane is, 150 feet. So I'm well within that limit. I have received nothing about this. The only information I have is what I got from my neighbors and Mr. Sechrist. I got an email from him back in April saying that the developer would reach out to me and let me know what their intent was. So I think my biggest concern being that close is trying to figure out what they're going to do with that parcel of land. I think if they're asking for a zoning change, they should be able to specify exactly why they need it, rather than just, we might do something. So that's my biggest concern.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, sir. Step up.
My name's John Swanson. I live in Coyote Willows. And my only concern about it, I understand the density and all that, is the traffic, if they, depending on what they put in there on Hafen, whether they need a light there at Riverside and Hafen, because depending on what they do, and I don't know what they're going to do there, but if they increase that traffic, there needs to be a light there or something like that, because that's, most of my neighbors, we understand the density and all that's not going to change, but we're concerned about the traffic on Hafen and what commercial, depending on what commercial would go in there, what that would do to the traffic there.
Correct. Thank you. Councilman?
Rich, I just want to ask Mr. Sechrist, is there any idea on what these people want to do with that piece? I mean, they're just looking for a zoning change at this point, so it makes it easier to sell. As I understand, as I've read through it, talked to people, that's what they're trying to do, sell this property, make it more attractive. That's what I've been told. Can you help us understand what they're trying to do with that?
They don't have a concrete idea yet of what they want to do with it. They probably are entertaining offers to sell. I don't know. I haven't talked to them. They haven't given me any of those details. But we don't, it is true that we don't know exactly what they have in mind. You know, in past discussions that I've had with them, again, we discussed some type of housing because that is a pressing need right now in the city. More so than more storage units, I thought. But I don't know what their plans are. If they're going to try and develop it themselves or just try and sell it to somebody else to use it.
Thank you.
If I may,
Go ahead, please.
I'm not sure it makes any difference. The bottom line is these people own property. They have a right to do whatever they can do with that property. Yes, and I agree that that light on Riverside and Hafen is probably more likely if there's any more development on Hafen Road. That's one of the top 5 places to put a light, street light. So I'm not sure any of this is relevant. I mean, the bottom line is these people want to make the most, put their property to the highest and best use. And CR2, come on, nobody's developed anything commercial in the west side of town on the south side of the freeway in 100 years. So let's be real. What it's going to be is going to be multifamily residential, which it's already zoned for. But if this makes it easier for these people to sell the property or to develop the property, I don't understand what the problem is.
Any other public comment?
My name's Josiah Jensen. I live at 324 Coral Circle. My concern is the same as been voiced by some of my neighbors over there. A lot of us built our homes just within the last 4 or 5 years in that area, and we aren't a part of the HOA that Coyote Willows HOA. And I think a lot of us built homes over there with an expectation that there were going to be specifically a development that was part of Coyote Willows, so we knew what we're going to get. We're going to get homes that look, maybe have more density there, but have to follow the same HOA that Coyote Willows does, that has the same look that Coyote Willows does. And I feel like to go with whoever was on the speaker above, I think that we have just as much right as those people do. We own that property, we own those homes, and with the expectation that we're going to get a certain product right across the street. And now to change it without knowing what's going to be there, even though nothing has been developed in the last 100 years on the south side of the freeway, it could be. It definitely could be all of a sudden changed to commercial zoning, and now we have things that we don't want right across the street. At the end of the day, like I said, I personally would like to see things be kept as much the same, or at least nothing changed until we know exactly what it's going to be, so that we can have a public hearing on that at that time. But to leave it open to say, hey, we could have big rigs parking across, in this area where my kids are using, up and down that street, left and right. Again, I'm not saying that we're any better than any other part of town, but there are commercial areas already in town. So if they want it commercial, go find a piece of property that's already zoned for what they're wanting to do and do that there. But personally, I think that, if they want to section off this piece and give it to section off the piece that's going to be the golf course maintenance, and then the other piece is going to stay the multifamily that it already is, then let's do that. But don't put a new zoning in there that it could be 100 different things and say that we shouldn't complain or have issue with that when again, we bought our property, we built our homes in that neighborhood expecting to get one thing, and come to find out we don't.
If I may answer or respond.
Yeah, go ahead, please. And then Mr. Sweeten is going to comment.
I will say that I guarantee you that you signed a contract to buy that property that did not guarantee you for surrounding land use. So to say that you had an expectation of certain things is not accurate.
Thank you. Counselor, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. One thing I would just note on this tonight is I think I just noticed when I initially went through the review, I wasn't sure exactly how this was agendized. It is agendized for public comment tonight, and that is an important distinction from a public hearing. So what I would recommend, council certainly can, if you wish, you can say, hey, we're just going to treat public comment as a public hearing. I don't know, I'd advise that you do that. I think it probably ought to be agendized as a public hearing. And then what I would recommend, that would give Mr. Seacrest time to go back and kind of look into some of these notice issues that have been raised tonight. I don't know. I haven't talked with him about, he's good at his job. I've been here 7 years. I've never seen an issue like that before, but certainly if it happened, that'll give him time to look into it, and then we can properly agendize the item. So I'll submit on that. Thank you.
If I may,
Go ahead, please.
Mr. Sweeten, are you saying that this was improperly agendized?
Yeah, I would say that. If the intent tonight was to make the zoning change tonight, and it was not agendized as a public hearing, then it would have been improperly agendized.
Okay, and so you're saying the remedy is either re-agendizing this item for a future date, or to accept the public comment as a public hearing?
I think
Which
you
I
could
wouldn't.
do either of those things. I would not recommend the latter, because I think if there's a challenge, which
Yep.
there's a lot of folks here tonight that it would appear to me may not be in favor of this. So if any of them brought a challenge, we would have to argue why noticing something as noticing a public hearing as public comment is the same thing. And I don't know that we can get there based on our past practice.
Okay.
But certainly the council would have the prerogative to do that.
Counselor, I would agree with you on that item.
I
think it's
will
just
make a
easy
motion to
move it on.
remove this from the agenda and re-agendize it with the proper public notice.
Second.
Good. We have a second. Call for the vote, please.
Raps and I.
Close public comment.
Thank you. No, public comment you don't close. I can still take public comment. Yeah. Okay. Yes, sir. Please step up.
Kurt Cox, 615 Madison, Coyote Willows resident. I did receive an official notice of public hearing for tonight. Just wanted to make that clear. So some of us were under the impression this was a public hearing. The other thing is, as a member of the Coyote Willows HOA, I was under the impression that we would be having a community meeting at some point about this. There was a note sent out, but then retracted. So I don't know who sent a letter to Mr. Seacrest saying that they were in favor of the change, but as a resident there, I haven't been apprised of any. Maybe I haven't gone to the HOA meeting, I don't know. But at first I thought there was going to be a public meeting of the community. I think another point I want to make going forward for you to consider is that this area of town has also changed since 2004. Levitt Estates, which some of these people have come from, wasn't existing at that time. That's a very good community. It's built up and sold out really quick. There's no more property really available in there, which shows that this side of town, this area is attractive to people that are workforce people like firefighters, teachers, so on and so forth, as well as a mix of retired folk. I think Mr. Rapson needs to realize that what he's saying is true, but the feelings of the people that live in the area are also valid. They have a great interest in keeping their community a great place to live and a good neighborhood. So knowing what is happening at that parcel is important to all of us in Coyote Willows, Levitt Estates, even down in Sunset Green. That area of town is I've lived in it for about 16 years, and we have a lot of high density multi-family housing development in our area already, as well as commercial. So seeing a place like Levitt Estates come in that has been very good for our area, and showing that people are willing to move into that area may be an indicator to these people that own the property that they could even develop it as a single family housing area if it was removed from Coyote Willows, or Coyote Willows could look at changing it to the townhome designation or to a single family designation and keep it as part of the HOA. I think there's other options that maybe haven't been discussed or vetted. That's why I'm concerned.
Thank you. Okay.
If
Any
I
other
may,
public comment? Go ahead, Councilman.
I can't disagree in entirely, but I can say I lived in Levitt Estates for years. In fact, we were the first, well, maybe the third house to be built. And I enjoy that area. I love that area. I don't live there any longer. And I am the one who designed the deed restrictions with respect to the quality of the construction in Levitt Estates. And that is still today attached to every one of those lots. I understand the desire to keep a particular area what it is. My point is simply that there's 7 acres that is zoned multifamily, and if it's zoned commercial, CR2, it still retains that ability to be commercial, which doesn't change a thing. Yet it gives the buyer or the owner of the property the ability to take it to the highest and best use. And I go back to the same argument. If you don't like what's going on, buy the property yourself and do what you want with it. I mean, we have to.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Do we have any other public comment?
No, I'm not done yet.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, we will then move on. That item will be re-agendized as a public hearing item. Okay. Let's look at item 3.2. Consideration of approval of resolution number 1022, adopting interlocal contract number 1176 between the City of Mesquite and Regional Transportation Commission of Southern Nevada for engineering design services for Oasis Boulevard and Ivy Lee Crest intersection project. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The resolution before you tonight is to adopt an interlocal contract with Regional Transportation Commission for engineering design services for the intersection of Oasis and Ivy Lee Crest. This area, as many of you are aware, is undeveloped in that intersection, and so as you're proceeding northbound on Oasis Boulevard, you're forced to move over into the future southbound in a one-lane travel. This will allow the movement to stay on the correct side, finish out that roadway. It's been brought up, there's some safety concerns with the current configuration. As you all are aware, it is the current stand of the City of Mesquite that developers finish their half of the roadway, except where we do see an excessive safety hazard. And in this particular area, it has been brought to our attention that this is a safety concern. Police officers have brought this to my attention. So all of the funding will be procured by regional transportation funds. It was approved by the board last week. We received the interlocal contract signed by them today. And so it is our recommendation as Public Works to approve resolution number 1022, adopting the interlocal contract number 1176 between the city and the Regional Transportation Commission.
Thank you. Any comments from council?
Yes. So.
Go ahead, Councilman.
Thank you. So we're paying for what the developers are technically responsible for. Is that correct?
Yes, you are correct.
Do we have any reimbursement agreements, anything that we can attach to those developments that causes them to do what they're supposed to do to begin with?
I would want to reach out to our council and see if it's possible to lien that property for the improvements. That's a great question, and I can reach out to Bob on that and see exactly what we can do. I'm not sure what we can at this point in time.
We keep doing this. We keep doing things on behalf of developers, and we don't get anything out of it. But they're violating our codes. They are not cooperating. They're not doing anything. They're not giving us any funding. So I don't want to keep doing stuff for free, particularly in this environment, financially, without some reimbursement.
Correct. I know that we have reached out to them in the past, and with that particular piece of property, there is no, what we currently do is as they develop the land, that's when that restriction comes into place. And so we can, just as you bring up, we can continue to let that stay in the condition it is and wait until that developer develops the property. We don't have anything to make them do that until they develop the property, or I will reach out to council and see if there's anything we can do as far as leaning the property or some sort of deed restriction with that property, and see what we can do to get reimbursed for this.
I would suggest that we do that. I mean, we can't just keep paying because the people don't want to pay. They signed agreements. They know what their responsibilities are, and we need to enforce that and not accommodate them. So yes, I would suggest staff do something about a lien process or whatever it takes to make sure that the ultimate developer of that property reimburses the city of Mesquite for the costs that we do to improve the roads.
Thank you. Councilman Galt.
I think that Councilman Rapson has got a good idea and we should pursue that. At the same time, I think we have a current safety issue. We have a policy that we have done before in this case where there is a safety issue exists. This is paid for by the Regional Transportation Commission. I happened to vote on it last week. I would make a motion that we proceed with the adoption of Resolution 1022.
Okay.
Public comment next.
I would like a comment.
Go ahead.
The fact that the RTC is paying for this is kind of irrelevant. I mean, I want to make sure that the developers have to reimburse somebody. No money is free. And at some point we have to just say, no, this is your obligation. Do it. And let me ask you, Travis, do you know how many accidents or deaths we've had at that particular place? I've driven it 100 times, thousands of times. Can you tell me how I managed to live through that?
No, I'm sorry. I don't have that directly in front of me. When this has been brought up to me in the past by our prior police chief, and we're just getting to this point now as far as that being a safety concern. I know that we're experiencing more development up in that area. As many of you are aware, a lot of the already graded lots up in the Canyon Crest and Mesquite Heights, Mesquite Estates subdivisions are more attractive to developers. This particular piece of property that is adjacent to where we're talking is raw ground. It has not been rough graded or any plans associated with that. And so we're seeing more growth on the areas that have already been graded. We're talking Boulder Heights, Cambria, some of those areas that are generating more traffic up into that area. And that's where this driver of the safety concern that if we do nothing and wait for the developer to do that, that is not going to happen in the near future at all. But as far as to answer your question directly, I do not have an actual number for fatalities or accidents at that particular location. I can find that out and get back with you on that, but tonight I do not have that answer.
Thanks, Travis.
Okay,
I appreciate that.
Mr. Sweet, do you have that information?
No, I don't have that information,
Okay.
Mayor. What I do have, I just wanted to chime in based on kind of what Travis said. I talked to Mr. Seacrest just a moment ago, And we do have development agreements with both Canyon Crest and with Mesquite Estates, which some of this property falls in. So really any action we take is going to be governed by that. So I suppose what I would put to council is no matter what we do, it would probably be done. Those are the types of decisions that are generally made in attorney-client sessions before we proceed to some sort of litigation or a lien, except for certain, public where we have to issue the lien here in the city council meeting. What I would submit is that if you do go forward tonight, I can still go look at those development agreements and bring you back a plan of action for potential reimbursement. If you don't move forward tonight, we can do that and then bring this back as an agenda item with all of that as one comprehensive item. So thank you.
Okay, any other comments from council before I ask for public comment? Okay, public comment. And I don't see any. I'll turn it back to council.
I make a motion to do the latter of Mr. Sweeten's suggestion.
There was a motion on the floor.
Okay. Can you state the motion, please?
My motion was to approve the resolution.
Okay, we already have a motion on the floor then.
So you can have two motions on the floor. Somebody would it's whichever second, whoever gave the second. Then you have to call for the voter.
Okay, do we have a second of the first motion?
I'll second Mr. Rapson's. I want to make sure that we do this in the best possible way that we can. Make sure it's done right.
That's the second item, but do we have a motion for the first item?
I'll second the first item.
Okay, we have a motion for the first item. We have to call for the vote.
Which item?
I may have, sorry.
Yeah.
I did a poor job of explaining it. So wherever there's a second, then you would discuss that item. Once you have a second, because we loosely follow Robert's Rules of Order. We don't follow it exactly, but under the rules of our council's procedure, once a second has been made on a motion, then you would discuss that item, have debate, and then the mayor could call for the vote on that item. If it fails, then if there's a second on the original motion, in this scenario, if there's a second, if Councilman Raymaker says, I'd like to second, then you would go down that road.
Okay, so we have
You have a motion, and a second, and then you can continue council debate. You don't have to call for the vote immediately. Typically, we do that.
Right.
You don't have to. You can continue to discuss before you call for the vote.
Okay, so we do have a second on the second motion.
Yeah.
But no,
So I guess
I want to make sure I'm very clear on what motion we are voting on. Is it George Galt's or is it George Rapson's?
George Gall.
No,
No.
Yeah.
it has to be Rapson's because his was the first one with the second. Is that correct, Mr. Sweeten?
Yes,
Is that,
That
oh,
is-
okay.
yeah, that is correct. So, go ahead, Councilman.
I was just curious what it would hurt to hold it for a week or two. Is that going to create a problem? That's something I'd like to know, I guess, maybe I should have asked that before I seconded.
No, not necessarily. One of the things, this has been approved by the Regional Transportation Commission. I do have an agenda item. To be honest, I didn't realize we would get this, but as far as I have an agenda item down to Regional Transportation to work on construction. So it definitely will not hurt anything to put this to next meeting. It's more of just trying to, now that we're getting on that, trying to keep that engine moving. But the agenda item for the RTC will not be heard until we have the construction part of that, the interlocal, on for Thursday for the TAC committee, and then the board votes on that June 11th, I believe. So we've got time.
I guess I'd also like to know the legal issue involved here. Are we going to put ourselves in a bad way if we vote for this now as opposed to later?
I don't know. I'd have to look at it. I'd have to talk to Travis. Just giving you general legal advice, I don't know that you put yourself in a bad position by voting for it now, but you're going to bind these RTC funds to be used. Those are going to go out the door. So I suppose if you view that as a bad position, then yes, you'd be in a bad position. If you don't view that as a bad position and you want to seek reimbursement, then you can move forward tonight. So it's difficult to say. If I've missed something, I'll defer back to Travis. But I don't see, other than that, I don't see what a quote unquote bad position would be in.
One of the things too, if by
entering into this agreement, if you come back and say that this will be, we have the engineer working on these, and so if we don't do this, then, and we say RTC, we don't want to use the money for this, this interlocal agreement can go away. As far as it, and that money could be used for other projects if you wanted it to. This is just the formal steps that you go through in this. But if it was deemed that council does not want to use the money for this project, then even if you enter into this agreement, we can get revoke the agreement, and then that money is still there for us to use.
Okay, so Rapson here, if I understand what we're talking about here, is that this is one, it's a project that we want to do for health and safety, kinda, but we don't know how many wrecks or how many people have been injured in that transition. Two, we are now talking about doing things on behalf of developers who have the responsibility to do it, but are not doing it. And we are not talking about leaning or making any future developer do what they're supposed to do. Is that a summary that's fairly accurate?
Yes, I think so.
I don't.
So why in the world would we even be discussing?
Because I think you can do both things. I think you can accept the RTC money and still direct council to draft up a procedure for how we work with developers to get them to pay their share.
That's true. I think that's right, Councilman Galt. One thing I want to mention, though, that I think Travis said that may or may not resolve this. If I understood Travis correctly earlier, the council can vote to proceed on this tonight. And ultimately, if we end up finding some hiccup on the legal side, so for example, hey, we can't go in, or we're prohibited from reimbursing these funds in the way we maybe thought we could, then we can kind of backpedal on this and reverse course and bring it back to council to cancel the project.
But wait a minute.
If we wanted to do that.
Hold on.
What do you say?
So what we're saying is we're going to devote RTC funds to something that rightfully should be reimbursed by the developers, but we're not going to pursue that. And so what we do is take...
No, that's not what we're saying. No.
Yeah, that's what we're saying, George. We're taking RTC funds that we could use for other purposes.
And to be clear, Councilman Rapson, I think what I was saying, I've never said that. I mean, as the lawyer, I'm happy to go after folks that are breaking contracts with the city. So I've never advocated that we just ignore those agreements. What I think I proposed just about 30 seconds ago was that we move, that if council decides to move forward tonight and commit those funds, this is just a procedural step in a longer process. If the council did that, and let's say in the next 3 days, Travis and I go back to our offices, we sort this out and we say, hey, we can't bring a reimbursement back. Council can work into their motion tonight. Hey, we approve this provisionally on the basis that we can seek reimbursement from the developers. 3 days from now, Travis and I realize that's not a legal possibility. We can bring it back to council floor. You can cancel out this agenda item and you can use the money for other reasons or for other purposes. I'll defer to Travis to make sure I'm correct on that, but that's what I think he said a few minutes ago.
Yeah, that's exactly, and in a sense, as far as, I guess I look at this as, we were identifying a potential or a problem area. We do know that the developer in this, the landowner of this particular parcel, has no ambition to develop that property. And so if we do nothing, then this problem will just get worse. I do agree that, I don't really like doing anything for somebody that is supposed to be doing their share. It shows, well, just wait and the city will do it for you. But I do think that there are some times where we need to look at those and say, all right, is this worth us spending some of our RTC money to do that, to make
this little safer situation, realizing if we do nothing, could be 10 years down the road. This has been developable for quite some time with no ambition to do anything on that piece of property.
Travis, Mr. Bollig, I believe, resides in that, is on the board, so he wants to make a comment on this.
Thank you, Your Honor. David Bollig, I'm on the board there. I want to go back several years back when they put in the temporary Ivy League Crest Road. I was pretty heavily involved in that on the HOA level because traffic was tearing up Huntington Heights. People were cutting through our private road, and worked with Billy Tanner, and we searched all kinds of possibilities of trying to force the developers on both sides of that same kind of situation that we couldn't get anywhere with it. And I believe I talked to Mr. Sweeten at the time. We did some research at the time, and if we put a lien on it, it's only good for 7 years. The lien then disappears. But I mean, I'm not against it. But remember, this is strictly for the engineering work, I believe, not for actual construction.
It would be, but sorry, it would be. This item tonight is for the $25,000 for the engineering work. But I do have another agenda item that will be coming shortly for the construction aspect, because I was just wanting to get this completed. But this item, you are correct, is just for the engineering work tonight.
Is the construction on tonight's agenda?
No, it is not.
No. So that's my point. We can't really go ahead with an agenda to construct when we don't have the engineering done to know what the construction is going to cost. So I mean, you got a little bit of a catch-22. So I would, and again, just the whole area. I mean, we're stuck with this all over the place. Canyon Crest has been terrible. We spent tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars of HOA money to try to correct things up there. We've got a developer up on top of Spanish Bay up there that the drainage is a mess. We've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to get that drainage done. The HOA paid for all the engineering on the culvert. The developer did the actual payment for the work. Same thing's going on the town wash there now, next to the Catholic Church. The HOA is going to pay for all the engineering to figure out the town wash, and then hopefully the developer is going to get it done. But in a lot of these cases, it doesn't go the way we really like it to go. But for the greater good of the area, I think it's something that I'd really urge everybody, since RTC is going along with it, I think it's a worthwhile to at least move ahead with the engineering on the thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Councilwoman Black.
Did I miss something that says we have to decide on this tonight? Is there you have to go to another thing that's hinging on us making this decision between now and 2 weeks from now?
It has already been approved through the RTC on their board action. So you don't have to. No, you could put this off. What I was trying to say is the engineering, this is just for the engineering contract, but because RTC only has one meeting a month, I have already put together the construction money that we will need to construct this. My estimate on the construction is $430,000. That would be asphalt, curb and gutter. I will not put in sidewalk, so at least I would make the developer put in the sidewalk, with that. So really we're talking the grading, the type 2, the asphalt, the curb and gutter to finish out that and make it so that you don't have to cross through the lane of traffic.
So does it hurt anything for you for the process if we don't decide today or we decide next council meeting?
No, not at all. We can put that off for 2 weeks, and that it doesn't hurt anything, but it's definitely one of those situations where if you do approve it tonight and then in a week you say, hey, we want to, I'm not sure, but 2 weeks won't hurt me at all.
Well, I would make a motion that we table this for 2 weeks while council gets together over the 3rd.
Excuse me. Wait a second. Now you've got a motion on the floor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what do we
And
do?
a second on the floor.
We have a second. Mayor,
We need to vote on,
I'd like to make just a comment and follow up on something Mr. Bollig said, which is that we have this situation all over town. I agree that we need to get this to a different place from a policy perspective, but this is not the way, in my opinion, this is not the way to do it. We need to sit down and figure out what it is we want to accomplish and how we get it done In the meantime, we got a situation that our city engineer says is a concern. I'm willing to trust that idea and get this moving. At the same time, I think we need to sit down and really talk about how we begin to address some of these situations around town
And
in a policy perspective.
that's a great point as far as it is the city stance, and we've held very firm to that of making the developer pay for their portion. We have situations. I do think that maybe that would be a good thing for me to help you out as far as when do we really feel, and I think this kind of points to what George is asking, when do we really believe that it is a health safety factor maybe, or is there a certain amount of accidents you have to have on there? I know with traffic signals, one of the things when we're looking at that, there's 9 steps that if you follow within one of those warrants, and one of those is traffic accidents, fatalities, number of vehicles on the road. So yeah, I agree. There could be things that I could help for future when we're looking at these.
But currently, Travis, the way I understand it, and if I understand Mr. Ballwig on that, if we wait for the developers to do this, we'll be basically waiting till hell freezes over. Am I right?
Currently, that's the feeling, yes.
Yeah.
And that was one of the reasons we brought this before, because we didn't get any reaction. And the fact that that particular piece of ground is what we call raw ground, to where it has not been touched. So the cost of construction is going to be a lot more than the adjacent areas that have already started improvements. Some of them have already graded lots. So yes, for that particular piece to be developed, we're looking at all of the rest of the area being done, because there's so much cost savings in that. And that's what feeds to all the traffic coming to there, which leads to me thinking.
So in the meantime, we can solve a potential issue if we move forward with this. If we don't move forward with it, it'll be some other council somewhere in the future.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, gotcha.
Speak. Your Honor, may I speak?
Go ahead, please.
Okay, so what we're saying here is the fact that the landowner is not going to live up to their obligation in the near future. So the city is going to spend the money that probably could be redirected to something more important than an intersection on Ivy Lee Crest. And we don't know if there's been any accidents, deaths, any tragedies that has resulted from this neck down. We don't know anything about this. Why are we doing this? Does anybody really understand why we're doing this? Is it important? Is it reasonable? Does it involve health and safety? We don't know this.
Travis, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I've categorized this as the intersection, but where the safety aspect of this is, we only have, when they develop Canyon Crest on that side, you have the asphalt, which is strictly on the southbound side of the roadway. And so, they've utilized the intersection to create a traffic, the traffic diverts from the northbound directions to one lane that is over onto the southbound area. So you have one lane in each direction. So you have 2 lanes, they merge into one, they're crossing through the intersection, going on to oncoming traffic, if you think of it. And we have areas like that in town. And then it veers back to the northbound once you get past this developed area. We're looking at, I believe, like I said, it's a small section, but the traffic being diverted is where we have the safety issue.
I understand that, Travis, but has anybody been hurt?
Good point. I honestly don't know that tonight. I'll need to get back to you.
Thank you, because I'm telling you, we're going to spend thousands of dollars on something that RTC will direct to something else if we don't do this. I mean,
No.
we just widened Falcon Crest, no, wait, what was it? Pioneer Boulevard between Calais and, Verizon. We did that on our nickel. We just said, you know what? The landowner's not gonna do it, so we're gonna do it. How often are we gonna do this? How much money are we gonna give to the developers to do what they're responsible to do?
Mayor.
That is a good point. I do know that on that particular piece with Pioneer, that has also, that was a major concern because we were necking down, but I have received numerous not complaints, but compliments about being able to ease that traffic through there. And so I do agree that the city used our money that could have went elsewhere and made the developer, but in that particular case, it has really paid dividends for the city of Mesquite in the traffic flow. And I do see this particular area with the amount of growth that we're seeing in that area, and may not have exactly all of the crash data and that, but I do see in the near future that that could become a potential spot.
Okay, Councilman Galt.
I want to see crash data. I want to see how serious this problem is for us to spend money, and not us to spend money, but the RTC, for us to take their funds to spend it on something that's essentially irrelevant. And I believe that. I live up here. I drive that thing 100 times a day. I've never crashed because that road neck's down. And I've never seen a wreck.
Councilman.
I don't think crash data and deaths are the only criteria for expanding a road. I mean, in this situation, I think we're also facilitating development, which is something I thought Mr. Rapson was in favor of. So,
Travis, okay.
I'm very much
sorry for interrupting.
But I'm saying the developers have to take responsibility for what they're supposed to do.
I'm all in favor of that. I just want to fight the fight that I can win.
What I would suggest to council is that we table this at least till the next meeting till you can get your story straight here. Because this is pointing two direction nonstop, and I see this accomplishing absolutely zero at this point. We're throwing everything and anything into the pot here and seeing what comes up here.
Yeah, that will not hurt us at all.
Okay, it will not hurt anything. Okay.
Much bullshit, Your Honor. I'm sorry to say. This is discussion, and that's what discussion is.
Well, we can discuss it all evening. I have nothing better to do.
No, you made a motion, I think.
No, I didn't make a motion. I can't make a motion.
He did not.
I made a suggestion that somebody table this thing until they can decide on what they want to do.
You know, I'm going to withdraw my second because I'm going to trust that Travis knows what's best in this situation. So if you want to make your motion, George, go ahead.
I'm going to move to figure this thing out. Do we have any deaths? Is this a health crisis? Is this anything we need to worry about and spend money? And I would like to know if these RTC funds are spent for this, does it take from something else that we can possibly do?
We don't know. Travis, excuse me. We do have another motion on the floor. The one motion was withdrawn. Would you repeat it, Councilman Galt?
I'm sorry. I didn't
repeat the motion.
My motion was to approve the resolution.
Do we have a second?
Sandra seconded the motion.
Yes.
We do have a second. A call for the vote, please.
Rapson, no.
Galt, aye.
The motion passes. Thank you. Item 3.3, consideration to approve resolution number 1023, an interlocal agreement to grant community development block grant funds to the city of Mesquite for program services fiscal years 2021, 2023. Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I hope this was less exciting in our local agreement than the last one. This simply allows us to enter into an agreement with Clark County for 3 years to receive CDBG funding. The project list is separate from this. The different components are there. This puts the legal agreement between the two entities in place there. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Questions from council? Comments from the public?
There are no e-comments.
We have one? No e-comment? Okay. If not, I'll call for the,
I make a motion, we accept resolution 1023.
and we have a second. Call for the vote, please.
Mr. Rapson?
Rapson, aye.
You?
Motion passes. Thank you. Mayor's comments, yes. Okay, I have a statement to read. I would never have brought this item up had it not been necessary, but because it was brought up twice by the city council and I was never given the opportunity to comment back in a public forum, I will now. At the last council meeting, I recused myself from any discussion on an agenda item brought forward by Councilwoman Raymaker. At no time did I want to be part of the discussion regarding Mr. Sweeten, nor did I have any part of this agenda item. With that said, let me explain what I'm talking about. It was brought up first at Tech Review and then at the last council meeting that I hold 2 jobs with the city of Mesquite. This would be a violation of Nevada revised statutes. It was also stated in the Mesquite Citizen Journal that I was doing freelance work for the city. In 2005, 6 years before I ran for city council, I became an independent contractor with the Recreation Center to teach an indoor bike class known as spinning. I did so, and I'm still teaching the class, or at least until it was temporarily closed with the rec center. In 2011, I was elected to the city council. Some months later, in 2011, the city attorney, Cheryl Hunt, suggested that it might be a good idea to get a ruling from the State Ethics Commission to make sure I was not doing anything in conflict with Nevada revised statutes. I requested a volunteer opinion and appeared before the commission on August 11th, 2011 in Las Vegas at the Grant Sawyer building. Again, this was a first-party request for an advisory opinion. At that time, I was teaching the class once daily for 60 minutes, 5 days a week. I received no benefits of any kind and received a 1099 as an independent contractor. I received an opinion from the commission that I had done nothing wrong, violated no statutes or ethics rules, and could continue doing what I was doing forever. The opinion was published and can be found online on the Nevada Commission on Ethics, Opinion 11-52A. The opinion has been online since 2012. I would urge any of you to read the opinion and tell me I have 2 jobs with the city of Mesquite. As a matter of record, I received in 2019 a total of $990 for the entire year of 2019. I taught approximately 145 classes, each 45 minutes long, plus setup time and travel time to the recreation center. I'm not sure why freelance was used, as I signed an independent contractor agreement with the rec center, as same as every other independent contractor has ever done with the city of Mesquite. Thank you. Comments from city council.
You preachers, both with town preaching, we have to.
Let's go. Hit it. Let's go with the video first. So you all, on Memorial Day yesterday, after the mayor's tribute, some folks and I went up to exit 118 and we were on the bridge with some flags. We got a lot of people interacting. This is some aerial footage that Chris Zerbis took. Looks like it's running kind of slow, but anyways, it was a really great event. A lot of the traffic that was going by was honking, and it seemed to make people really happy. And I'm glad with the way it turned out. And it was suggested that we do this every year. And I think that as long as people want to do it, I'm happy to continue to do it. I have a couple photos too.
Another cooperator who was there at the time. We have a circular.
So these are some of the folks that were out there. Pretty good turnout. So Thank you very much, Tyson.
Mr. Baker.
Are we still on council comments?
Oh, go ahead, please.
Okay. I just wanted to thank the mayor for bringing forth that Memorial Day celebration. We've been doing this for years and years and years. And it's kind of a special one. And those of you that didn't get to see that or haven't looked at it online yet, please do so. And I'm hoping to be a part of that for many, many years to come.
As long as you have a voice like that, there'll never be a problem.
The other thing I wanted to thank is, and I wanted to thank all of those within the city that helped make it a special night for the high school seniors. I received an email earlier today. There's so many people that could be thanked in this. I know that there'd be some missed, but if I didn't say thank you to everybody in the community that made that a special night for the seniors, I wouldn't be doing justice to all those that worked hard to do so.
Thank you, Councilman. And not to promote a video, but in the video that I did today, I did make special comment because I was there handing out the water bottles and then the gifts to the students. And every student that went through the line received a very nice, almost like a thermos bottle. And inside every one was a gift card. But to make it more interesting, scattered throughout all of this were extra items in there, such as television sets, laptop computers, cornhole games, beautiful jackets, etc. And I do make the comment that if anybody ever says that our young people are not appreciative, they better eat their words, because I saw nothing but appreciation coming from these young people. It was the most organized, unusual graduation I've ever seen. And I attended 15 in a row as a high school teacher. And I know that Riley Fry was a little bit nervous, as to how this is actually going to go. And I think Ms. Fielding back there, who was part of this thing, would said it was as smooth as silk. There was no issues whatsoever. It went over well. And I think everybody in the city appreciates that.
Can I have one?
Yes, please.
And I just want to let people know, for all of you that have been waiting, the library itself will open on the 30th of May. We've had our drop site, but the library itself will open. We've got a lot of things planned, and it'll be very safe. So please get out there and enjoy the library. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments?
Hearing.
Okay. Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to read a quick statement. Late last week, Barbara Elstead, the publisher of Mesquite Citizen Journal, reached out to city staff regarding the publishing of public notices. By law, the city has to publish certain notices in a print newspaper in order to provide proper legal notice. Ms. Elstead recognizes this information may not be making it back to local residents since we don't have print paper like we used to in Mesquite. Consequently, she reached out and has generously offered to post public notices, bids, RFPs, and other city-related information on the MCJ website for the city gratis. We appreciate her reaching out and seeing a need in the community and offering to step up and fill it. So just want to thank her and recognize her.
Aaron.
Okay. Any other staff reports? Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, Janice Redondo, Community Resources Mayor. Just want to remind you that we are in a contest with the city of Fernley for having the best self-response for the 2020 census. We are at 66.1, they're at 66.2. You will all be wearing Fernley t-shirts come the 4th of July if they beat us. So tell your neighbors and your friends and your family and your enemies, whoever you have to talk to, we've got to bump up our number.
Could you mention where the video is that we did on that item?
It's going to be posted tomorrow.
Okay, tomorrow. Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, on the city website?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
You'll see Ms. Redondo in her acting role.
Yeah.
Okay. It may be her last act. Okay.
I will just, she's awesome. She's got more energy, and everybody at the senior center has more energy than God. These guys are crazy.
Thank you. Item 6.1 is consideration of tentative map case number TM-20-001, Outlook Point subdivision, Phase A, to approve a single-family
Excuse me, Mayor.
Did I miss something? Yes, I did.
5.1.
I'm sorry. 5.1. I must be in a rush. Consideration and introduction 579 to repeal an amendment of portions of Mesquite Municipal Code Title I, Section 6, Part 2, governing qualifications for the office of city council member. And that is Councilman Whitson.
And co-sponsored by Councilwoman Romaker. Before we get into that, I did go after the opinion that you gave, Mayor, and this is the comment I got on it, is that the ethics opinion applies only to whether you can negotiate a contract for yourself as mayor and continue to do so, not addressing 1.6-2 or whether or not you're an employee. So there's still some gray area there as well, but I don't want to go back and hash this. What I want to do is I want to say, you know, we need to move forward. We had some people that wanted to see us change this, move forward, and take care of the problem so we don't have it again. This doesn't change what's happened in the past, but this just for future going forward. What we're trying to do is we're trying to blow up that ordinance that was about half an ordinance because it didn't really match what we were doing. And at this point, it matches most of the municipalities, not all of them. Some of them still have something similar to this, but it matches most of the municipalities, and it puts us in line with state law. And so moving forward, basically what we're saying is that you may not take office without being without first resigning as a city employee, if you are a city employee. And that's what I would like to see happen and to move forward from here. This doesn't affect what's happened in the past. It's just to move forward at this point.
Okay. Comments from council? Go ahead.
If I may, just one thing, just to put it all in the past and everything else, never was any of this ever meant to keep anyone from running for office. It was strictly because of wanting to clarify and to have everybody as an equal. And that's all it was, and to have questions answered. So let's clarify and move this forward.
And I appreciate Councilwoman Romaker's she was gracious to be part of this as well, so that we can move forward with the city.
Okay, Councilwoman Black.
Thank you. So I think I've made my feelings pretty clear about this, so I'll be brief. I mean, I would have loved to have spoken about this with our city attorney, but in my personal opinion, it's hard to do that because I feel like I'm not sold that I'm going to get an unbiased opinion. So I didn't, which I think is partially why rules like this exist, because it makes it difficult to get impartiality. And I wanted to touch on something. I know that the claim was made this is a violation of state law, and I did do some research of my own and found out that Boulder City has the same exact type of rule. So if we're in violation of the state law, I guess, so is Boulder City. There's also some cities in Utah. I didn't make it to any other states, but there are some cities in Utah that have the same kind of rules. And then
The standard that you used, Clarence Heatley was, if you will, the poster boy for that.
And then the reason that I think that rules like this are important is for the next slide. There's a statute that says if a written challenge was made concerning someone's qualifications for candidacy, enforcement, and pre-election actions, these are the procedures according to the Nevada revised statutes. There, are several above number 3, but number 3 is where in this particular situation with the city attorney, or even if Ms. Beck was to run for council, we would have a problem, because if there was an issue, say someone had objected to Mr. Sweeten's candidacy, the procedure would have been someone makes in writing a complaint to the clerk takes that complaint to the city attorney. So then is the city attorney then investigating himself? Or what if the city clerk were going to run for city council or for mayor? Well, for mayor, I guess, particularly. Would she be accepting the complaint on behalf of her own self, her own candidacy? So it's clear, and I'm obviously not an attorney. I had to do this research on my own because, like I said, I didn't feel like I could go to our city attorney on this because this is a weird situation, and this is what I've come up with. So clearly there are some conflicts That's what this is all about. And I think if we were going to be responsible, and I know this is kind of a bad subject right now to have outside legal counsel hired to look at this, I think that since the person that brought this bill before us, this whole situation, is involved in this drafting of this bill, maybe we should have outside counsel just to direct us on, is this right? Because like I said, I'm not going to say I don't trust, but it gives me reservations to ask the person involved in this matter coming before us for legal counsel on it. So those are my comments.
I think if you look at the one from Boulder City, you'll notice that that's charter. That is not in the municipal code. Therefore, that is state law in Boulder City. Because as part of the charter, that is part of state code. With us, it was municipal code, which is not state law. So those are two completely different issues. This one belongs to the state as state law. What we had wasn't. That's the difference between those two. As far as attorneys, we had 4 attorneys on the line last week, and you had the opportunity to call other attorneys if you wish to. So that wasn't, you've had the opportunity to talk to attorney. Now, here's what I would suggest, Ms. Black, is we are trying right now to move forward. If you don't like how it's written right here, go ahead, vote it down, take it to the charter committee, change the charter to how you'd like to see this go. I don't have a problem with that. I'm just trying to get back online so that we have something moving forward that is good for the city. And what I have proposed here is what most of the cities in Nevada do. I don't know what Utah does, but I live in Nevada.
Yeah, I don't live in Utah either, thank God. And I'm telling you that Brian is right on here. This is absolute, try to shut the door after the horse has left the barn. This is nonsense. Get it done, get it figured out. We're not going to change the outcome of this election. Forget it.
Okay, Councilman Gold, you had a comment? No, you don't. Okay. Okay, public comment. I don't see any. Turn it back to council. Request a motion.
I move to approve Bill 579 to repeal the amendment and portions of Mesquite Municipal Code Title 1, Section 6, Part 2, governing qualifications of the office of city council member.
Okay.
Wait,
I second.
we do have a second. Call for the vote, please.
Rapson, aye.
Wait, to adjourn.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's okay. I'll fix that in post.
That motion passes. Thank you. Okay, now we're down to 6.1. An easy one. Consideration of tentative map number TM 20001 Outlook Point subdivision phase A to approve a single family common interest age restricted subdivision located generally east of the Crimson Ridge Phase B subdivision and west of the Abbott Wash Detention Basin in the Anthem at Mesquite Planned Unit Development. Mr. Seacrest. Oh, you got it instead. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dan Catron, planning staff, for the record. This is a request by Pulte Homes to subdivide 15.2 acres into 70 single-family residential lots as part of the Anthem at Mesquite PUD. The subdivision is located to the southeast of the clubhouse building there and directly east of the Crimson Ridge Phase B subdivision. Access to the site is provided from Switchback Road and also from the extension of Flagstone Bluff, which comes out of the Crimson Ridge subdivision to the west. Lots in the proposed subdivision range from 4,350 square feet to over 11,000 with an average lot size of around 4,500. There are generous amounts of landscaping along Switchback Road and also adjacent to some retaining walls that will be in the center portion of this subdivision. Pedestrians are accommodated by 5-foot wide sidewalks along one side of the interior streets, and then they will be sidewalks on both sides of Switchback Road. So staff is recommending that the council hold the public hearing
and approve the tentative map for Outlook Point Subdivision Unit 14A, subject to the conditions that are listed in the staff report.
Thank you. Okay, this goes to council first for comment. I don't see any from council. I'll open this up to public hearing. If you wish to make comment in public hearing, please step up, clearly state your name.
There are no
I don't
e-comments.
see any. No e-comment. Okay, at that point, I will close public hearing, turn it back to council of any more discussion or a motion.
I'll move.
Councilman. Go ahead, Councilman.
Councilman Rapson moves to approve.
Rapson.
I think he's moving it, made the motion.
I didn't hear any of it.
I make a motion, we approve tentative map case number TM 20001.
I'll second.
We have a second. Call for the vote, please.
Rapson, aye.
Okay. Motion passes. Thank you. Item 6.2 is consideration of street name number change case number SNC-20-001 to change the address of 1351 Stonehaven Street to 589 Willow Bridge Lane. That is also a public hearing item. I think we discussed it last week. Mr. Seacrest, do you want to give us some info on that?
Connor, members of council,
Okay, thank you.
it's a simple address change. Brian Cook, the owner of this property. Let's see if we can get this up here. Here we go. The air photo shows his property. It faces Willow Bridge Lane, but the address assigned to the property is 1351 Stonehaven Street. He would prefer a Willow Bridge Lane address to make it easier to find. The address is usually posted on the front of the house, and people don't know where he's at if they can't see it. So anyway, it's a simple request. It just involves this particular property. We recommend that it be approved.
Okay, comments from council before I open a public hearing? Okay, seeing none, public hearing is open. If you wish to make comment, please step up, clearly state your name. Seeing none, public hearing is closed.
I
And
move.
on to the next item. Oh, go, Councilman?
Rapson moves to approve.
Second.
Okay. Okay, call for the vote.
Mr. Rapson? You made the motion.
I made a motion and I move to approve.
Okay. And that motion passes. Thank you. Item 6.3, consideration for approval of all summary of all discussions, capital improvement plans, and amendments to the May 19th, 2020 budget work sessions on the fiscal year 2020 to 2021 tentative budget, and direct staff to move forward and effect any and all changes to fiscal year 2020-2021 adopted budget. That would be a public hearing item also. And Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Before we get going, we have a couple of updated revenue numbers I want to provide you with so that you are aware. We're up in some areas and down in others. Ultimately, it's a wash. It doesn't change anything operationally that we're going to be able to do. But property tax revenues are increasing from, the projection is increasing from 4.2 to 4.3. That's provided by the state. The RTC room tax, which, let me tell you the other ones that are up. Excuse me, I'll do that then. And then the C-tax allocation, 6.9, the state has provided, Applied Analysis has provided us with an updated number on that to 7.3 million. The room tax numbers we called LVCVA, and they provided us with updated numbers. The road RTC room tax number is going from 193 down to 120. The room taxes number is going from 386 down to 225. And then the overall room and gaming tax would go from 750 down to 460. Okay. Again, that's just a wash financially on impact to the budget there. We did make the updates requested in Fund 21, moving the charge from phone to professional technical services. And then we do have a detailed breakdown of mayor and council's. Tyson has that worksheet. If you'd like to discuss that further, make sure that staff understood correctly your desires there. And then there were some other clerical updates that were in there, but nothing substantive on that. So I realize it's a little small. If you want, I can walk you through this so that you're aware. As we understood it, and I want to make sure that we have this correct. Initially in the budget, in order to take the same proportion decrease in budget, it was $20,500. Based on what we heard of that council meeting, these are the things that we excluded, and this is an amount greater than $20,500. Down at the bottom of the page, Tyson, if you can scroll down a little bit more, it's a considerable decrease. You can see it was originally, it needed to be 118, and now it's down to 40,000 there. So, but to walk through, if you don't mind going back up to the top again, Tyson, thank you. The investment in the LVGEA was removed. The Chamber of Commerce was taken from 10,000 to 3,000. Nevada League of Cities, in conversation with the Nevada League of Cities, he has offered to do a provisional membership, which if we get federal stimulus, he said, I would respect the request that you include us in your budget moving forward if you do receive federal money. If you don't, he said, I understand. So he's willing to do a pay for performance arrangement there. I thought that was a fair arrangement there. Nevada Commission on Ethics, that's a required cost. Travel and training was reduced from 12 to 2,000. Office supplies, we tightened that up from 5 to 300. Cell phones remain the same. If there's any desire to have anything changed there, someone wants to turn back in their phone, we can realize those benefits, but we just left it as is. Hardy Consulting Group and RealNex remain the same, and then the allocation each council member was removed. There is $1,000 in there for a council photo, and then the school funding for CIAB, that was removed as well per the direction. If there's different direction the council wants to provide this evening on this budget, staff is happy to take any notes there, but that's what we have for the budget.
Okay, before I open a public hearing, I'll turn it over to council for comment, questions. Councilwoman Black.
Were we going to hear from MRED before we do this, or?
Mr. Tierlink is here this evening, so.
Mayor, Council, thank you. I was just waiting for the right opportunity, I guess. And so thanks for bringing that forward. So I went back and glad to come back before you at this time and report that our board had discussions, and in a measure of good faith and goodwill, they have increased the 25% budget cut to a voluntary 30% budget cut. So I appreciate all that our board has done and their level of engagement and work on this thus far. And with that, I also wanted to make a couple statements as well. There's been some questions asked, and I've had a little bit more discussions from individuals asking about the difference between doing economic in-house versus having an organization like ourselves perform the economic development services that we do for the Mesquite region. And I want to point out that when economic development was in-house, the average annual cost was $274,000, and that only entailed wages. So it didn't include, the marketing and the training and the traveling and the conference and supplies that all go along with economic development wealth. That was just an average of $274,000 a year for wages. And with our new proposed 30% budget cut, our total funding contribution from the city, if approved, would be $133,000. That's about 51% less, or $141,000 less than what it costs for the city to do economic development when it was in-house. And in addition to the massive cost difference of the two different models, more importantly is the confidentiality that businesses have with a private organization like ourselves, that businesses really insist on when exploring options. So wanted to make those 2 points clear. And then also wanted to highlight on some of the things that we are doing as an economic development organization. So even with these cuts, we will still be offering a full range of all the economic development services. And those aren't only business recruitment. A lot of times when we talk about economic development, that's what comes to individuals' minds, is that's what we do. And it certainly is what we do. But in addition to the business recruitment that we do, we also do business retention and expansion. And we do workforce development and attraction, and we do community development. So those are also all encompassed in this $133,000 budget that, if approved, we will be doing as an economic development organization. And Mesquite Region Economic Development has also made a lot of headway in multifamily housing development. As a result of that work, we have recently had that approval of a 310-unit multifamily housing project, and in discussions and working with many more developers. And funding economic development is not really a question of expense, but it's a question of revenue. And last year, MRED clients paid over $840,000 to the city in taxes and fees. And so with that, I just want to bring those statements before you guys and ask for your guys' approval of this, the budget kind of as is and where it stands, with the caveat that we're going to increase our budget cut from 25% to 30% as a measure of good faith and goodwill. Any questions for me?
Okay, Councilwoman.
I just want to make a statement or two. Number one, I'm not advocating for economic development to be brought in-house. And I think the cost of things only becomes an issue in the absence of perceived value. And for me, it's not a matter of me thinking that we can do it better in-house. It's a matter of, are we getting a good enough return on what we're investing? Sure. And so that's my concern. So I want to clarify that. And number two, for Mr. Baker, we still plan to have RFPs on maybe some outside companies looking at this.
So as part of the strategic planning session, the larger question will be asked, yes.
Great. So if there's no other comments, and if
We have Councilwoman Raymaker.
So my concern is from what I understand from the attorney at the last meeting, is we can't even consider taking this discount without bringing it back for a hearing because of our contract. If I might have misunderstood, but
No, that's right, Councilwoman Raker. Well, all you're approving tonight is the budget. So the budget doesn't take effect until July 1. So if the council approved a budget that were to reduce MRED's funding under the current contract, they've agreed, at least informally, to that cut. I think we would have no objection to that cut. And so we would redraft, and that may happen. That's not just limited to MRED. That would be essentially any program or service that is cut or a contract amendment would be required. We're going to bring those on in June.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comment?
Yes.
Who do we have? Councilman?
Oh,
yeah. Councilman Galt.
I read last week that Clark County's unemployment rate is 28.2%, which is about 4 to 5% higher than the nation's unemployment during the Great Depression. It has to do with the structure of the local economy being based primarily in services of tourism and hospitality. Wyoming, other economies are doing the same thing that other similar economies. Wyoming, the tourism sector is just absolutely flailing. My feeling is this is a critical time for economic development. We've got to have a program in the field, got to have things moving. This is not the time that we can retreat. We have residents who desperately need not only jobs, but good jobs. And in the economic development world, everybody wants to go elephant hunting. It's the phrase they call it. There actually are relatively few plant location decisions every year. Nobody knows what's going to come out of this economy. Mesquite Works, MRED, had a conversation last week with the State Department of Welfare and Social Services. We're trying to do a new program of train to hire. They want to offer some specific training in HVAC, IT, desk support, dialysis, and advanced manufacturing. Those are things that could open up some new employment here. HVAC jobs probably start about $25 an hour. If we can get a few of those folks trained, that would be a good start. So, and Riley Fry, the principal of Virgin Valley High School, is on that phone call with us. And we're trying to create a continuum of getting those kinds of classes into the school so that kids can come out with some kinds of certification. And the Work Ready communities, based on the ACT Work Keys test, provides a national career readiness certificate. That's another piece that we're trying to put together. So there are a lot of things besides the elephant hunting that economic development entails. And I think it's critically important that we have a field, somebody in the field out there. And that's my pitch.
Councilman Worsthon.
I just, has anybody heard, I mean, this is part of it, that Governor talked at 5:30. Are we opening June 4th? Okay. I was just kind of curious. Well, you know, we're sitting here talking about this budget. We're sitting here talking about Mesquite economic development. And I'm telling you what, and I'm going to say this again and again over the next while, we're putting out a budget out there that is going to change. It's going, we had to put a budget together, but I'm going to tell you what, it's going to change, whether we end up with economic development or rec center or whatever it is. I mean, this is going to change. And I want to keep saying that because of the fact that this is a good example. The fact that where we were looking at really at June 4th, now we have no idea when it's going to be that even the casino's open. And that's primarily where we are. So I'm against taking this in-house. I'm glad that Colton cut another 5%. I'm not saying that's where it's going to stay at all. I mean, right now, we've put a budget together, but I think going after one item here and one item there, I don't think it's going to make a huge difference right now because it's going to change so much. And I can't say that strongly enough.
I agree with that. And I will say that one of the golf courses in town here lost 1.3 million in future bookings from March to now.
Pretty much all of them did.
Yeah, I know. And Brian, you know as well as anybody, this was devastating to a lot of the businesses in this town. And it's not going to just recover tomorrow. It's going to take people feeling comfortable with flying, with driving, with restaurants, with all of these things. And I'm telling you, whatever budget we approve tonight, and frankly, I don't really care at this point. I mean, we went through it last week and I'm okay, but we all know it's nonsense. The revenue numbers are nonsense. The expense numbers are real. We will be talking about this every meeting between now and next year.
Mr. Baker.
Just to follow up to Councilman Rapson's point and to the council's point in general, Ms. Melendez and I have talked about this. The first meeting of every month, starting in August, we're providing you updates on where we are on the expenditure and on the revenue side, so that you have a sense of what we projected and what we're actually receiving and where we are with expenses. So hopefully that will help provide some comfort, cold comfort, I think, at this point. But it will provide, we will be checking back in every month on that.
Okay, Mr. Baker, this is a public hearing item, so I will open this up for public hearing. If you should make comment, please come up, state your name.
Yes, David Baldwin. I'm going to tie in some of this on a couple of budget items. MRED. One thing I have to say is I totally agree with Councilwoman Black about performance. And Mr. Galt brought up something that I have argued against repeatedly, is relying on the state to tell us what to do because they're telling everybody what to do and every state's telling everybody what to do. We need to find a different way of doing this and looking for some performance. And I'm going to say one thing that's maybe a little self-serving. MRED should talk to the people that are actually working in manufacturing and do things, and maybe listen a little better than getting mad because they don't like what they hear. And that's what I've experienced. Okay, so I've been in business for over 35 years doing especially manufacturing, and I think I've got a little bit of experience in multiple, since 1984, multiple recessions, relocations, and all this stuff. But just going to the state all the time, everybody gets that answer. Now, the one thing I want to get to is Chief Chesley put in his budget, continued funding for no-kill shelter, which I really appreciate. I think everybody around that knows me knows that's one of my passions, okay? But the one thing I think the council, and I don't want to lose it, but one of the things I think the council is going to have to realize is you need to at least put a line item and fund CF for $60,000. Now, whether you expend it or not, put it in the budget so it has some type of flag or marker there. So it's easier to not spend it than to put it in later. So we talk about MRED and development, but we're taking a chunk of money out that our kids need to get this education, to support, to move ahead, to help us with economic development. I think just we're not looking at it in the big picture. So I would ask the council to please put the $60,000 back in there, make it conditional on, and again, the budget's going to be crazy. So whether they get spent or not, I don't know. I doubt it. But put it in there so at least there's a check mark there so you guys can watch it and say, maybe we can do it, maybe we can put it in, maybe we can't. But these kids are important. Brian and I worked on this extensively, find this funding, and we don't need to drop out a year. We just really, really don't. And so I would just ask you please to consider that, to put that in there, and you'd still be within. And I talked to City Manager Aaron Baker today about putting it in. So you would still be well above your 8% required surplus in your budget that you would turn in. Thank you. Thank you.
Jim Wilson from Mesquite. Good afternoon, City Council, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to congratulate Mr. Baker and his staff on their preparation and presentation of an austerity budget. Having done budgets for 40 years, I know how hard it is to put those together. It's a difficult task. At the same time, I heard very little vision for the future. This will end, and Mesquite needs to be ready when that happens. Needs to be ready to move forward. Mr. Seacrest brought up some information that we could make a change. It's not a big change. A convenience fee for using credit cards is not an unreasonable change in practice. Maybe a list of cash price and credit price or something like that would work. A 5% fee for using a credit card does not seem unreasonable. He also pointed out that the Parks and Rec has, or his budgets for parks, he has $2.3 million. It would seem reasonable for the city to borrow from that fund and build a ball field for 1.5 or 1.6. Could be repaid to the fund with revenues that are received. As we get past this period that we're in, we're going to need a foundation to continue to bring revenue to the city. And I think we need to put some focus on what's going to happen in the future. Mr. Montoya talked about a membership of 2,500 in a city of 25,000. Now, I realize that some of those memberships are family memberships, but why not a drive for membership to help raise the revenue figures that are coming in from over there? It's a drop in the bucket, but we need all the drops we can get. I do want to compliment Mr. Tierlink. I thought that he was the one person that really focused on the future. His focus was on companies repatriating to the U.S. from outside the country and other things, large and small. He did mention earlier today that his MRED is responsible for almost $800,000 in additional property taxes from the things that he's brought into the city. I think he should be complimented on that. We haven't, in the course of this, talked a lot about what we still need moving forward, which was on our agendas before it started, and that was affordable housing and job training. I'm glad that you brought those things up, Mr. Galt, Councilman. We also are in a period where bonds are pretty low interest rated, and this might be a time to go into that market and be able to move on some of the things that the city needs as we come out of this environment. Thank you.
I'm acting vice chair for CF. At the budget hearings last week, when we were talking about that item, it was decided from council that they wanted to follow the mayor's suggestion and readdress that in August. I agree with Mr. Ballwig. It's kind of hard to do that if we're dealing with a changing budget, and that hasn't been even penciled in at this point. I understand decisions being made at this point, you know, are going to kind of be flexible, but at the same time, if the idea of council was to readdress CF in August timeframe, and that was what, you know, CF is going to be working on at our next meeting, trying to figure out the best way to approach that, it's going to be very hard for you to find $60,000 based on where things go. So I agree with Mr. Baldwin that I would like to see that at least penciled in for this time. If CF doesn't get it for the schools, we can have that conversation in August. But at this point, it's basically just being removed entirely from the budget. So I don't know how council is going to be able to find that going forward. Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, who was that speaking? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
That was Mr. Lisk.
Okay, thank you.
David Resnick, new resident of Mesquite. I've been here since March, my first city council meeting. I'm here to share some real world experience working with Colton and MRED. And really the reason I'm here is because of the efforts of MRED and Colton. I have to compliment him as well. It's been absolutely tireless. So I'm the CEO of a drone company. We have a very large firefighting drone. I think I spoke to you, Mayor, about it. And we're excited about moving this company. It's a manufacturing company. It's a multi-year project. Will take several years, but it could bear some really good fruit. And I think Mesquite is just a fantastic place. I've only been here a few months, and I love it. And see nothing but potential here. You know, I know it's a tough time, but we will get through it. And I have had nothing but great experiences with MRED.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comment in public hearing? If not, I would close the public hearing, turn it back to council. Comments from council? I don't see any comments from council. I would request the motion on the budget.
I'll move to approve the budget, but I also want to mention to Mr. Lisk and Mr. Ballweg that when the time comes, and if we have any way to come up with that money, I will fight for it. And I think you both know that very well. I will fight very hard for it. It's an important piece to me too. So
I'll second
entertain.
with that same comment.
Okay. Mr. Baker, before we call for the motion.
I just want to make sure that that's with the updated revenue numbers and the corrections that were provided as well. Is that correct? Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll now request the motion on the budget.
Where's requesting the vote?
Lights aren't coming on, that's why I don't.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I move to approve the budget with the changes.
Okay. We have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Thank you. Call for the vote, please.
Raps and I.
Thank you. And the motion passes. Thank you. Okay, fine. We're down to final public comment of the evening. If you have public comment to make, please step up, clearly state your name. and you are limited to 3 minutes.
Colton Tierlink, just want to announce a quick event. Thursday at 1 p.m. here at City Hall, we're going to be holding a town hall for businesses, and it's open to the public. It's free. There's going to be a panelist of a diverse range of professionals. So if you can attend, please come and join us for that town hall. And if you can't attend in person, it will also be streamed, through the city's site. So hope you can join on Thursday. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other final comment?
We do have an e-comment.
We do have an e-comment. Go ahead, please.
We have an e-comment from Adam Leverance, and it states, okay, so under agenda item number 5.1 tonight, 4 council members voted in favor of changing Mesquite Municipal Code 1-6-2 so that it's no longer in conflict with Nevada Revised Statute, a superior set of laws. I'd argue that even more superior than Nevada Revised Statute are the constitutions of the United States and the state of Nevada. Each of these protects freedom of speech. From Article 1, Section 9 of Nevada's Constitution, quote, every citizen may freely speak, write, and publish his sentiments on all subjects, being responsible for the abuse of that right, and no law shall be passed to restrain or abridge the liberty of speech or of the press. In all criminal prosecutions and civil actions for libels, the truth may be given in evidence to the jury, and if it shall appear to the jury that the matter charged as libelous is true and was published with good motives and for justifiable ends, the party shall be acquitted or exonerated, end quote. As most of council now appears open to bringing Mesquite codes into compliance with superior law, I ask that revisiting Resolution 922 be placed on the agenda for the next tech review and regular council meetings. As a reminder, Resolution 922 resulted in the city adding this to the public comment section of meeting agendas. Quote, derogatory comments of non-public individuals or another public commenter shall not be permitted, end quote. Former Councilman Baldwin seemed to contend that public employees paid with public monies, receiving publicly funded benefits, and enrolled in the Public Employee Retirement System, or PERS, are non-public individuals. Speaking about instances of misconduct by specific public employees when their supporting evidence should not be forbidden by claiming that pointing out such things is derogatory, or by falsely claiming they're non-public individuals. In video of the September 25, 2018 regular council meeting on the city's website, you can see Councilman Dave Ballweg and Mayor Alan Littman forbidding speech about misconduct by city personnel. A little after 11 minutes and 45 seconds in, some of the audio's been muted. The official written minutes of the meeting were also censored as indicated on page 3 and 4 of said minutes. To continue to try and forbid public discussion about specific public employees who've engaged in serious instances of misconduct is an affront to freedom of speech. As council appears in the mood for fixing city rules, I ask that Resolution 922 and
Time.
Is there any other public comment? Public comment? This meeting is adjourned.